Welcome back to Forgotten Frontiers. Today we're traveling back to the 19th century, a time of remarkable transformations that reshaped our world. From political revolutions and groundbreaking inventions to the struggle for human rights, this century changed everything. But how exactly did these events come together to create the foundation for the world we live in today? Let's dive in. A world at war, Napoleon and the rise of global power struggles. The 19th century kicked off with the echoes of cannon fire across Europe. Napoleon Bonaparte, a brilliant military strategist and ambitious leader, was challenging the balance of power. His campaigns brought sweeping changes, and his military genius made him a legend. However, his ambitions weren't limited to Europe. Napoleon dreamed of global dominance. His armies marched across the continent, sparking conflict and inspiring other nations to rise up in response. One of the defining moments of this struggle was the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. This naval clash saw British Admiral Horatio Nelson lead a smaller British fleet against the powerful Franco-Spanish Armada. Nelson's victory wasn't just a tactical triumph. It was a defining moment that established Britain as the dominant naval power for the next century, allowing it to expand its empire globally without serious challenges from other European powers. But Napoleon's ambitions came to a close in 1815 at the Battle of Waterloo. After a disastrous campaign in Russia, Napoleon's empire was weakened. Yet he rallied once more after escaping from exile. At Waterloo, the Duke of Wellington led a coalition that delivered the final blow to Napoleon's ambitions, bringing about a new era in European politics and ending the age of Napoleonic warfare. The winds of change, independence movements in South America. While Europe was in upheaval, change was also brewing across the Atlantic. Latin America, long under Spanish and Portuguese control, began to seek its own path to freedom. From 1810 onward, nations across South America rose up, inspired by the same ideals of liberty and self-determination that had sparked the American and French revolutions. Leaders like Simón Bolívar and José de San Martín became symbols of the fight for independence. Bolívar, in particular, earned the title the Liberator for leading Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia to freedom. These independence movements weren't just battles, they were the start of a cultural and political transformation that would reshape Latin America. This wave of revolution brought an end to colonial rule across the continent and began a new era for nations that had been oppressed for centuries. Industrial Revolution and the Railway Revolution. The 19th century also marked a turning point in technology and industry. This era saw the birth of the Industrial Revolution, a time of incredible technological advancement that changed the way people lived, worked, and interacted. Factories, powered by steam engines, produced goods at a scale never seen before, transforming the economies of Europe and North America. One of the greatest symbols of this industrial boom was the steam locomotive, pioneered by George Stephenson. Known as the father of railways, Stephenson's development of the steam locomotive set the stage for a transportation revolution. Railways were built across continents, connecting cities, towns, and countries. Travel times that once took weeks could now be completed in a matter of days or even hours. Railways didn't just move people, they moved goods, ideas, and culture, spreading the influence of industrialized cities far and wide. This new accessibility wasn't limited to the wealthy. For the first time, working-class people could afford to travel, transforming society by allowing greater mobility. Railways not only fueled economic growth, but also helped knit nations together, setting the stage for the modern, interconnected world. The fight against slavery and the quest for freedom. One of the darkest and most important stories of the 19th century was the global struggle to end slavery. This fight began in the late 18th century, but reached its climax in the 19th. In the British Empire, William Wilberforce and other abolitionists fought tirelessly to end slavery. Their efforts led to the abolition of the Slave Trade Act in 1807 and eventually the abolition of slavery throughout the British Empire in 1833. Although the victory was historic, it was also bittersweet, as the government controversially compensated slave owners for their losses rather than supporting freed slaves. In the United States, slavery became the focal point of an irreconcilable divide between the northern and southern states. The abolitionist movement gained momentum, and by 1861, tensions had escalated to the point of civil war. The American Civil War tore the country apart, but by 1865, the Union emerged victorious, and slavery was officially abolished. The war was brutal, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives, but it marked a major step toward equality and the eventual civil rights movements that would follow. The abolition of slavery was a global struggle that shaped the ideals of human rights and freedom, inspiring future generations to fight for justice. The Meiji Restoration and Japan's transformation. For centuries, Japan had closed itself off to the world. Under the Tokugawa shogunate, Japan enforced a strict isolationist policy known as sakoku, barring most foreigners from entering and forbidding Japanese from leaving. But in 1853, this isolation ended when Commodore Matthew Perry of the United States arrived in Japanese waters, forcing Japan to open its doors under threat of military action. This encounter sparked a wave of change, known as the Meiji Restoration. In 1868, the young Emperor Meiji took power, and Japan began an ambitious program of modernization, embracing Western industrial, military, and governmental practices. The transformation was swift and intense, and within a few decades, Japan emerged as a global power with modern industry, a strong military, and a drive to expand its influence. This set Japan on a new path that would profoundly impact the 20th century. The light bulb and the revolution of electric power. While many inventors contributed to the development of electric light, Thomas Edison is often credited for creating a commercially viable light bulb in 1879. But the invention didn't happen overnight. British scientist Joseph Swan developed an early version of the light bulb, and Edison's innovation came from improving upon Swan's design by using a carbon filament, which extended the bulb's life and efficiency. Electric lighting transformed everyday life, replacing oil lamps and candles with safe, reliable lighting that changed how people worked and lived. Edison's light bulb set the stage for further developments in electricity, sparking a wave of technological advances that would power the modern world. The scramble for Africa. As Europe industrialized, its demand for resources increased, fueling a scramble to conquer and exploit lands in Africa. During the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, European powers divided Africa among themselves, ignoring existing cultural, ethnic, and geographic boundaries. This brutal colonization resulted in exploitation and severe consequences for Africa's people. The European presence in Africa reshaped the continent's political landscape, creating borders that still lead to conflict today. Colonial policies led to forced labor, resource extraction, and bloody repression, leaving scars that are still felt across Africa. The exploitation of Africa's wealth marked one of the darker chapters of the 19th century, serving as a reminder of the costs of imperialism. The invention of the telephone and the birth of global communication. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell patented the first practical telephone, an invention that would transform communication. For the first time, people could speak to each other across long distances in real time. Though Bell is often credited, other inventors, including Italian engineer Antonio Meucci and American inventor Elisha Gray, had similar ideas. Bell's telephone brought the world closer together, making it possible for families, businesses, and governments to connect instantaneously. This breakthrough was a key step toward the digital age and the interconnected world we know today. The birth of radio communication. As the century drew to a close, another revolutionary communication technology emerged: radio. Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi is often credited as the father of radio, though Russian scientist Alexander Popov made similar discoveries around the same time. Radio's development created the foundation for modern broadcasting, revolutionizing how information spread. Radio became crucial in both daily life and wartime strategy, showing that the 19th century laid the groundwork for the communication networks we rely on today. The 19th century was an era of profound transformation. The Industrial Revolution changed economies and societies, while the political upheavals and independence movements reshaped borders and sparked new nations. Technological advancements in transportation, communication, and industry built the infrastructure for our modern world. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's most influential periods. If you enjoyed exploring these pivotal events, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode here on Forgotten Frontiers. Your support helps us bring more untold stories to light, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What moment from the 19th century do you find most fascinating? Let's keep uncovering history's hidden tales, one story at a time. See you next time.